This is the second part of our interaction. If you haven't heard the part 1, which is episode 33, listen to it first. We continue our conversation in this episode and talk about turning stalkers into consumers behind the scenes of partnering with influencers like Ananya Birla, Melvin Lewis, and Raftar. The TikTok madness, building a millennial obsessed, influencer driven clothing company, and much more. The last conversation we stopped just before we were talking about how Disrupt came about. Lead us to the days before you started Disrupt.
When I was working, जब मैं काम कर रहा था for you and all my past startup, I realized that I have certain things which I need to learn. कुछ ऐसी चीजें थी जैसे management at scale, what happens, how things happen at macro scale. So I think more or less in a year of time, I got an opportunity to work closely with founders that helped me somewhere to channelize things that, like, what I'm good at, what I'm not. And somewhere with that, I wanted to make a good use of it to build something of for myself, and of course to create something which is of a good value. I don't know why, but I always think the fashion consumption in India is somewhere which is where we lack trend, where we lack a lot of aspirational brands. Most of the consumptions are happening because of the pricing war and everything. So with that perspective, we were more towards that how can we build a brand in value fashion space. With the kind of data we had an access to, yeah, we realized कि अगर इसको if we are able to use it wisely, then we'll be able to create a sizable chunk of a business and create more value to customers, right? So with that perspective, we started off. I think
What sort of data are you talking about, Shakif? And
sure,
data points did you
right.
notice?
While I was working at Find, I more or less realized the high value segment brands like Diesel or Superdry are consumed more in tier 3 cities, right? And there is a demand for it. So we were quite shocked to know that there is one pin code which happens to be in Kolhapur. Customers order denims worth 25K, right? There is a pin code which is in Jodhpur. People order 12,000 worth of gas innerwear. So this was the data where I realized that, like, people are looking up to international brands because that is what they find quite aspirational, and people are okay to buy, right? People have that purchase capability. It's just how you position yourself and call yourself and connect with that audience in a more aspirational way. So the question is, aspiration आता कैसे, right? Aspiration comes with a connect what that brand has been able to build, right? When you wear something, you have to flaunt that. You are wearing a piece of a creation, right? And you are carrying that creator overall with you. So that's why, like, the designer brands and the boutique brands come in. So we wanted to create and replicate the very same thing in value. For that very reason, we thought, यार ये जो audience है हमारा, जो audience base है value fashion में, what do they look up to? Who are the people they look up to? And we realized that there are two set of people. First is entertainers, second is cricketers, right? There is no third
Hmm.
people. And now the third category is pretty much bringing up in terms of politicians, right? And we people have one or two choice in that. So anyways, so predominantly there were only two categories: the entertainers and the cricketers. The cricketers are someone who are delight to watch when there is a very competitive match, or, like, there is IPL or something. But you can't consume what they consume, or you don't aspire their lifestyle because it's quite different. So for that very example, the lifestyle which most of the teenagers, most of the youngsters consume are of entertainers, right? They want to know what they are
Hmm.
doing, how they are doing, what are they wearing, what do they stand for. And we all are pretty much, like, most of our time on Instagram are pretty much occupied on stalking them, right? Um, so
Yes.
we realized that, like, there is a gap in that market where if you make those stalker convert into your consumer, then you have a good chance of creating a business where if the product is something which creates a value. So the value for us is the quality in a limited price. So what we did is we went on to getting all this, I won't name them, but we got all these top brands, हमने सारे उनके products लिए, and then we tried to match those level of quality. We infused our creativity in that. हमने अपनी creativity ऐड करी, हमने हमारी एक नई डिजाइन टीम बनाई. बट हमारा जो स्पेसिफिकेशन था, हमारा जो एक पॉइंटर था, ये काफी क्लियर था कि यार एक क्वालिटी ये मैच होनी चाहिए. बाकी डिजाइन आप ये बनाओ जो हमारे यंग ऑडियंस को काफी पसंद आएगा. एंड ये पहनेगा कौन? तो पहनेंगे वो जो उनके इंटरेस्ट ग्रुप में आते हैं. So for that very reason, we looked up to reality TV show. So there are a set of people who find reality TV show very addictive, right? It's very addictive for them,
Yes.
and
Very.
they go on to any extent to mimic someone who's on a reality TV show, right? So we realized that, and for that very reason, we got Ranvij on board. He happens to be a co-founder in Disrupt. Then we got Ananya Birla, who happens to lead this entire English pop music scene in India. Pretty famous with an average views of 15 million on YouTube. She's now an international sensation as well. Then we went up to Melvin Lewis because he was someone who was a flag bearer in terms of dance, creating a content related to dance, having more than 3 million subscribers, and leading that from front. So those are the people we look to, and we collaborated with Raftar is one among them. He is someone who have been the front runner in terms of rap as a culture. He has been promoting new talents and pretty vocal about rap as a culture, and he is someone who is giving a very right shape to entire rap culture. So these are the kind of people we started working with. If you see those are four very different affinities, and that's where we saw that aspiration value could come from having a diverse set of influencers wearing your product, promoting your product, and the major challenge was to reflect their personalities in those products so that we could reach out to their target audience, right? So yeah, that's what we try to build, and I think so far we have been successful in our attempt, and we're trying harder to make things right. We are learning closely. This entire influencer economy excites me because there is more to do with followers, there is more to do with comments, there is more to do with likes. It's a very interesting thing, and in India, it's only getting started. People are trying to understand that, and quite happy that we are the front runner to create something of that sort. So, yeah.
It's a very exhaustive walkthrough of what Disrupt is about. Let's dive deeper so we can understand how you're able to sort of leverage the influencers and create an aspiration around them and actually capitalize aspiration. I love that you said stalkers to customers or consumers.
Right, right. So I think every stalker is a consumer in some or the other way, right? Every follower
Hmm.
consumes some or the other thing in their real life. Now, because they are getting dependent on digital as a carrier to consume any and everything, it's a challenge because you have 8 seconds of their lifespan to make that mark, right? And through the caption, through the imagery, through the creative, you have that momentum building up when you have a face as well, right? So if you come across some creative, of course it has a good caption, it has a good creative, the lights and background and everything is good. But there is a brand which is being promoted out of all of that, right? And there is no face, there is no context. There are very rare chances that you'll connect with those brands, right? But
Hmm.
when there is a celebrity face which you are following and they are promoting a brand, right? And they are talking about it. The caption is right, the imagery is right, the connect is right. There is a purpose you follow one particular celebrity, right? Because you have an interest in rap. That is the reason why, or else you love two or three raps. That is the reason why you consume that particular artist. So with that, the attention span increases, and you have much wider attention, and that is a window which I think influencers gives us to create that impact, to create that aspiration, unlike any other brand with a good imagery or a good product. Plus, but when there is a good influencer, you have to multiply that effect by having a good quality product in affordable price. Because what generally happens is you make your first sale, right? And then people are more like, "यार ये brand आपसे कभी नहीं करूँगा." So in that case, your influencer's credibility is at risk. Your brand's credibility is overall at risk, right? So a hero, I think, something which is on a forefront, something which is the strength is the quality part, and the second comes is the influencer, because they help us to connect with millions of new users. Will you just go back in 10 years, just go back 10 years, and you realize that you
Mm-hmm.
have a product, you have a quality product, you have a good team and everything. Just imagine the pain you had to market that product, right? Just imagine
Yes.
the pain you had to help it reach out to the other customers, right? Imagine the pain you used to deal with in terms of connecting with the people and creating that communities and upselling them, right? So I think all this were a real pain. But when there is an influential economy, you see those communities building up. You see that you are
Yes.
building, you are having a real impressions, you are connecting with the people, you can read their comments, you can read what they think about your brand, can pretty much hear through DMs. You get an opportunity to realize your own mistakes or else improvise on something, on some feedback. So in that case, having an influencer, having a product which is around an influencer helps you to reach out to much wider audience, as well as give you a reality check of what you are doing right and what not, right? So that's, I think, the thesis of building any brand. I've seen most of the brand have been built up in 20 years, 15 years. Quite frankly, if you are pretty much digital native, it takes less than 5 years to build a brand and sustain it and make it to take it to profitability. So this was a couple of my learnings while before starting Disrupt, and I'm still at it here.
This is very personality driven business. And I remember talking with, I think it was Ranveer from the Ranveer show, Ranveer Alabadia.
Right,
He was mentioning it to me that the influencers today will not be the influencers of tomorrow. There will be new influencers coming on board in the next 5 years.
right.
And it's like a wave, and there will be new ones that will emerge in the next 5 years. How do you make it as a sustainable venture? Because once you, let's say, you pick a celebrity, you've invested so much of your time, money, assets, resources behind this influencer or micro influencer,
Right,
and you know that you have only 3 to 5 years of window. I think it's shorter than that, but you will be able to tell me better. Is there like a
right.
product cycle? Is there like an influencer cycle that you notice where they peak and then it just declines and fades away?
So I'll tell you what the model we refer to is more of a licensing model, right? So with the likes of different brands, it won't be wise to name those brands, but the brands which is singly focused towards one particular influencer, or else I'll
Mhm.
say a mega celebrity, they are at much higher risk, because the success or the
Yeah.
failure of that particular celebrity depends on existence of a brand. And in past, it actually happened. If that particular
Mhm.
celebrity is doing good, I think the brand does good. If that particular celebrity is celebrating his birthday, the sales are good, right? But when that particular
Hmm.
celebrity is in a jail, the sales are down, right? And most of the people are looking at you with not the very same view as they used to. So we were pretty certain in our learnings, and this is what we did. We said that okay, Disrupt is an independent brand. Disrupt stands for all the black ships, right? We represent the black ship culture. So what is the black ship culture? You are a black ship, I am a black ship. podcast, I think, is something, taking a podcast and, like, taking it as a career option is something which only black ships could do, right? It's
Yes.
pursuing an engineering and, like, being a coder and then doing fashion is something which black ships could do. So I think there are a lot of black ships in fact in industry as well. There are a lot of black ships. So we said that, like, okay, Disrupt is an independent brand where we represent black ships. We tell the stories of a go-getter. We tell the stories of, like, persistency. We speak about the hardships what they go through in terms of pursuing their dreams, and we represent such go-getters. We represent such disruptors. So our business model is, at any given point of time, 75% of our product shall remain core collection, right?
Hmm.
75% हमारा जो कलेक्शन होगा वो डिसरप्ट कोर होगा. Disrupt core is something, a white shirt which you are wearing with the disrupt logo is a disrupt core. The rest 25% is something where we license and collaborate with other influencers to co-create a collection, right? So in that, we have an 18 months of time period where we are eligible to launch three capsule collections with that particular celebrity. That is all up to us. We could do one, we could do three, basis of the feedback and everything. And this is how it works. That like, we take 18 months licensing of that particular celebrity to co-create a collection. We have never surrounded Disrupt under one particular influencer, right? Ranvijay being the
Hmm.
co-founder, we never surrounded or else, like, said that Disrupt by Ranvijay. So we never positioned it as such. Kept it independent. The ideology is independent. The tone of voice and everything is quite independent. Represent those people, and there are influencers who have pretty much disrupted one particular niche, and we co-create a capsule collection with them. So yeah, that's
You remind me of a story of Ugly Duckling. Have you heard the story of Ugly Duckling? It used to be in our nursery times books.
okay.
Do you
I
know?
no.
Oh, okay. It's very similar to the Black Sheep, but it's a story worth thinking about. I think that's what Disrupt is about. Let me walk you through the
Right.
story in case. So there's this ugly duckling that was very black in color, and
Okay.
all the other ducks in this farm teased it, mocked it, and just shoo it away, kept it aside like a wallflower, right? Like always ignored.
Okay.
They didn't mingle with this duckling, and this duckling was just hating the fact that it is so ugly and
Okay.
being teased and mocked all the time. So one day, what happened was, I think a wolf came in and attacked the farm and started eating all the other ducklings. And somehow, this one ugly duckling escaped. And it escaped and ran for its life and found sort of. I'm rushing the story here to get to the
Right.
point, but it found another farm where it went. And the farm's caretaker saw this ugly duckling in a terrible state, took it
Uh-huh.
in. The farm owner had a wife, he had two chickens, and even they didn't like the ugly duckling. They started
Oh,
teasing it, mocking it, again, keeping it aside, telling the farmer, "Why did you even get it in? Just do something with
right.
it. Go somewhere and just keep it, throw it away, or do something with it. We don't want something which is this ugly."
Okay.
And the farmer had no choice but to just let it go. So the ugly duckling was again on its own, and it was winter time. And this was a region. This is a story in a cold region of the world. And the lake that the duckling was going on froze,
Right. Oh.
and suddenly the duckling could see itself in that reflection. And while it was seeing itself in that reflection, there was this birds that were flying in, the swans that were flying in. They were probably traveling the world. So this stopped by on this frozen lake.
Okay.
And the ugly duckling saw this group of black swans around. And it had a internal transformation. It started asking itself, do I go back to the farm that I've just come from and again go through all that? Or do I actually go and join these ducklings?
Hmm.
And in that dilemma, I decided, you know what? What's the worst that can happen? And it joined this pack of duckling, hoping that they'll accept it. And when it went and joined, it didn't. The duckling realized that it was accepted, and then they again made the duckling look in the reflection on the lake, and realized that it's never been a duckling. It was always a black swan.
Ah. Wow, that's an interesting story.
Yeah. And then it flew with the black swans. So it reminds me of the kind of brand that you're building. You're looking
Right.
for the black sheep or the black swans that find their own space.
Right. Very, very true. Very true. I think the reference you gave is a very wise context to start with. And I think that's where we thought that, like, there is an aspiration which is left to connect with that value customers. So the thing is, okay, you give them a product which is, like, of a very high quality in a very affordable price. You give them a face, but what else? That face should tell something, right? If that face is not telling a story, then it's not connecting, right? Because it's just like any other endorsement. So for that very reason, we conceptualized the brand disrupt, and then, like, put that positioning, and, like, which was pretty apt, and we went on to search influencers who actually disrupted, right? Ranvijay disrupted
Hmm.
the VJ trend in India, right? Ananya Birla, before Ananya, I don't remember, very famous musician who represented the English pop on international level, right? Melvin Lewis, he became a viral sensation by teaching dance or else, like, doing this. So I think all these people we had started with, we worked with, are disruptors in their own sense. There are challenges to find many such disruptors because
Hmm.
people are pretty much into, like, staying in their own white and black space. So in that, even the people who are disruptors are not very vocal about talking their struggle stories because they think too early to get that, like, empathy, and too early to give out all the stories. So with that aspect, we face those
Hmm.
challenges where we talk to influencers and they are not yet ready to come out with their version of story, even though if it would end up inspiring multiple people, they don't feel comfortable. But then that's fine. I think that's their personal space, and we need to respect that. Yeah. So
How do you craft these narratives? Because I understand that a big part of every disrupt influencer is the story that they are sharing.
right.
And I think most of these influencers that you've listed have already started sharing their stories. So when you come on board, how do you enhance their narrative? What elements do you add to their story? Or what elements do you bring out of them that you want to amplify?
So let's take the case of Ananya Birla. With her, a narrative was quite simple, quite subtle. That, like, So this is when I was speaking with her. We were quite certain that she had a journey where she had an options open, and those were the options which were set out for her, right? Since childhood, she knew that she has to take over her father's business, and she has to take care of the Birla family's name and everything. Coming out of that and saying, like, deciding that she is going to be a musician is not normal, right? It's not normal in nature because you see the outer version of a musician, right? आप बाहर से अगर आप देखते हो तो, like, they just create a music and then, like, they are in their happy world and everything. But no, that's not the case. You have to go through a lot of discipline in terms of creating that music. You have to go through a lot of learning. There is no shortcuts in that,
Mhm.
right? So
Yes.
she went through that. She gave up something else in exchange of that, and I think she stayed true to that. So the collection name we pitched to her was Never Normal. And the Never Normal
Hmm.
is more of so if you see the collection, we have a tiger's print on it, right? A very well crafted, shaped up geometric face of a tiger was printed. Sorry, lioness. lioness was printed on those products, and the kind of statement used on joggers or t-shirts were conquered, something which were more aspirational. Those were the narratives I think we first pitched to her, that a story has been just like a lioness, right?
Hmm.
And that sets her to be quite never normal, and that is the reason that this entire collection name has to be never normal. And that's how we started. And I think, like, she thought that we are the right people to collaborate with. We somewhere understand her pretty well. We could represent her story in terms of collection as well as in terms of the content as well. So yeah, she gave us an opportunity. She gave us her licensing for 18 months to, co-create a merchandise. That's how we go about this.
So let's dig a little deeper and see how we can understand you and what you've been making happen better. So, what elements of Ananya Birla's story, and I've been acquainted with her story for about 7 to 8 years now.
Okay,
So, what elements of Ananya Birla's story were you focusing on? I realize one is the fact that she isn't taking the normal route.
right.
What part of the narrative were you able to bring out with her?
There are a lot of fears which one needs to conquer, right? That starts with your inner fear. So those were the first set of things where we said that, okay, what are the buzzwords which represents this, and that represents the word like conquer. Similarly, we created a word bank where we said that, okay, this is what Ananya represents, and then we came up with the character around it, where we said that, okay, can we make it more playful? Can we make it something which is a far more representation of the word bank what we have created, right? The words were raw. She is someone who is a silent rebel, right? She has been through a lot in her personal journey, and
Yes.
she was quite vocal, and I think she defeated lot of such challenges what she have been through, right? A lot of negativity, a lot of undermining herself, a lot of self doubt. I think we understood that, it's not easy for anyone to come
Yeah.
out of that unhappy mental state to giving out such playful and happy songs. It's a struggle in its own self, which I think nothing but your, grit can override that, right? We realized truthfully that, she's a disruptor, because the way the challenges
Hmm.
what she has been through is also peer pressure, lot of, the media pressure to perform, and,
High expectations. Yeah.
right, higher expectations and everything, but still staying true to that, doing that, pursuing that every day, coming out of that unhappy mental state, coming up with such lyrics, doing that performance on stage, all these things took a lot of guts, right?
Hmm.
And that is the reason why the word bank we included grit. So combining all of this aspect of a word bank, we thought the lioness, right? Lioness is
Hmm.
the perfect example of what she has. She has been, and she is on top. So we always, whenever we used to meet her, she's always that one hungry little kid who is always looking at what next to do, what's exciting. She always has plans in her eyes. I could see that. I could sense that. And I think that was,
Tremendously ambitious. Yes.
yeah, I think that was quite genuine about her. That was something which was, I think, I saw in very real and very truthful artist, I would say, very genuine artist. So,
Hmm.
yeah, I think we stayed true to that collection, and we came up with this.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Why would she? This is more of a individual that you're discussing. So why would she go with disrupt? She has ABFRL, which is Aditya Birla Fashion and Retail. She could always go to somebody in the company she owns and create a collection of her own. Why?
right,
How did you convince her otherwise and ask her to license to disrupt and not to somewhere where she could probably make more money and
right.
have more resources at her end through ABFRL or Madhura Garments? Why would she choose disrupt? And how did you manage to convince her otherwise?
So I think I'll tell you what, it's always you have to understand what's in it for a celebrity. while we were pitching Ananya,
Hmm.
we already knew for a fact that, like, money is not something which is her drive. So we realized her drive is to connect with more wider audience. Her drive is to connect with her set of audience where she has a story to tell. Now there are two forms of saying that story. First is, of course, like, let's write it in a words or an article, some sort of it, or like, creating a video, which is like, pretty much the media level of it. And second is merchandise. Now, in terms of merchandise, of course, they have a big set of brands, a large scale brands, but none of that brand has the name called Disrupt, right? And none of the brand has got that guts to go out and experiment of creating and imbibing the story of a disruptor, right? So I think for that very example, we were lucky enough to spot her, I think inform her about Disrupt and what we do. We were quite fortunate that it was in the first meeting we decided that we are going ahead with this collection. I'll tell you an interesting story. We never thought about this, but she came to our office to check out things, right? She went through all our each and everything about how our process is, who are the people behind this, who are the folks who are going to be designing this and manufacturing this. So I think when she saw that a preparedness, when she saw our approach, she was pretty confident that, like, she won't get any right partner other than Disrupt to work with. So yeah,
Hmm. One thing that I noticed right off the bat is when you go and approach an influencer, you are going with what's in it for them,
exactly right.
which is very strategic in your approach. How do you find out when you look at these influencers, the ones that are emerging, how do you decide what's in it for them?
I think it's a part of a process of when you have that first conversation over a phone and you make them understand about what you are trying to do. It's about that positive vibes, what they reflect back, and through that you keep on having those conversations, and then, like, that's how it manifests. I think there is no set process to it. It's more of your gut. It's more of as and when, like, how things come through. And I think it's more of a preparedness as well. When you are talking to that particular influencer, you should know the entire history about them, right? And I think most of the influencers are not an influencers if they are not true self on social media, right? So most of the personality, I think, are derived by the way they caption their posts, the kind of brand associations they get to do, the kind of language they speak. And I think that pretty much understood of the character of that particular influencer. And through that, in a first meeting or a call, you realize what they should be looking at or they are looking at. And yeah, I think it's more of an intuitive call. There is no static
Hmm.
process to it.
I have a silly question to ask.
Yeah.
Did you have any influencer that you ended up screwing your relationship with up and then you turned it around? Do you have any of that?
That's an interesting question. Okay, let me think. I think no. We never went through any such cycle as any such
Hmm.
relations. I think the only thing I think which is more of our competitive strength is the influencer, the relations what we have with our influencers. I think they are the people now who suggest that you should do a collection with her, you should do a collection with them, and I think they somewhere boost about us or tell the celebrities about her. I think Melvin Lewis made most of their friends by from Disrupt. And he created a video where he called up all his celebrity friends, Harleen Sethi, I think Sanpad Dhar, all these celebrities, and, like, he asked them to browse through the website and buy something from his collection. So we never advised him to do that, right? We never asked him to do that, but he did that because somewhere the
Yeah.
genuineness of that entire process of ideating a collection, to when they feel that collection, that okay, this was my vision with this collection. When I first spoke with this guy, he sounded quite crazy that, like, he could imbibe my personality in a product, right? That in itself is quite a challenge. So when they see those products coming out and, like, when they feel it, and when they get a feedback from most of the people, then they are the happiest people. I tell you, like, the kind of responses what I have seen from either of the influencers are crazy. So I crave for that first reaction when the products come out, and then so that happiness is
Yes,
pretty much the childlike happiness. And I think in all the
yes,
influencers, I have pretty much noticed that, like, they, when we are staying true to that entire personality and they see that coming in a product, that's a different kind of a joy which they go through.
yes.
So
It's one of
yeah,
the most ultimate validations of what they have been doing. And most of these black sheeps, I realize for so long they haven't gotten validation. Having clothing like these, where their thoughts or their personality come through, is such a strong validation for them.
very true, very true.
Let's talk about the next wave of influencers that's happening on TikTok. And I feel Disrupt is so rightly placed for a medium like TikTok.
Right, I think TikTok is in itself quite an interesting platform. बहुत बहुत ज्यादा एक्शन हो रहा है अभी एक ऐप
Hmm.
एक एक एप्लीकेशन के ऊपर इतने सारे एक्शन. आई थिंक काफी टाइम बाद ऐसा कोई एक एप्लीकेशन आया है जो which gives one power to express themselves, to enact certain things, and, like, it made acting and form of expression quite easy. So just go back and realize that if you want to express yourself, you should have an art and you should have a craft to express that. And now with TikTok, I think वो art और craft तो रहा ही नहीं, right? And any and everyone who can enact with those
Yes.
understanding of visualization and mimicking that are an artist. So in its own form, it's a quite interesting thing. But I'm on a personal level, I'm still not able to understand the reason behind the massive success. But yeah, from the consumer standpoint, I think it's incredible. The platform is very strong. The penetration in the different tiers.
Yes.
TikTok is an app for Bharat, right?
Hmm.
The young Bharat, right? So I see a lot of people who are from tier three and tier four are getting famous, and, like, they are turning into an influencer on Instagram as well. People are getting 100 million views in a day, right?
Wow.
Those are some of the crazy numbers I think we often come
Mind
across.
boggling.
Yeah, so I think that always excites everyone, even the brand owners and everyone.
I think the next 5 years will be where we're going to have a disruptor from Solhapur selling merchandise to a pin code in Jaipur. Because that's
Yeah,
where we are headed.
no doubt. I think the times are quite changing. I think you very rightly said, even Ranveer very rightly said, जिस तरीके से टाइम चेंज हो रहा है, एक न्यू सेट ऑफ इन्फ्लुएंसर्स आर गोइंग टू
Yes.
come in, and then they'll have their own very dynamic stories, very dynamic stories. So these are the people I think we are also looking up to. Few of the first few famous people on TikTok, they are disruptors in them. They have disrupted quite technically. Unki life has been something which is nothing less than a disruption overall, right? So
Yes.
the change what they have seen in their own life is phenomenal, right? So I think the platform is quite powerful, and we are looking up to an opportunity to work with such people as well. Just figuring out the right set of folks, because I'll tell you what, when you have already worked with, like, the cream layer, you always have an opportunity to like go up,
Hmm.
go 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 a notch up, or else, like, look at something which is more from the trend perspective. So I think that is a call which we have to take, that either we have to tap in the A league of celebrities who happens to be a disruptor again, or, like, we need to focus on the new faces to co-create a brand. So yeah, that's a call we have to take. Yeah.
Yes, I think that's one of the challenges with a business model which Disrupt has. I understand that 75% of the business is more to do with the day-to-day cash, which is of the normal collection.
Right.
that I really like this structure, of actually making sure that you have your cash position strong, and then experimenting with 25% of your resources with influencers.
Right.
It's a very practical model. It isn't gambling. It's more like a very sound business approach.
Very true. So just imagine, like, you are starting a brand 10 years back, right? तो उसमें आपको होर्डिंग्स लगानी होती है, आपने डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन सेट करने होते हैं, आपने distribution partners. I think you have to be accessible all over the place. After 10 years, you have an access to millions of people, right? And you can deliver it to them. So in that case, that's a marketing cost as well, right? There's a marketing cost to build that brand as well. So I think वो जो 25% ऑफ कलेक्शन है, उसमें हमने मार्केटिंग कॉस्ट भी डाल दिया है, हमारा अपॉर्चुनिटी कॉस्ट भी डाल दिया है, एंड देन जो हमारी रिस्क टेकिंग एबिलिटी है, हमने उसको भी उसी में सुसाइड कर दिया. So I think that's how we operate.
I like the mix. How do you look at the distribution? Is it only online, or are you also looking at going to physical stores?
We are pretty much looking at going offline. Now, I think we should be looking at LFS, the large format stores to start with. So far, we were in a phase where we wanted to test the waters. We wanted to co-create with different people and understand if this model works in India as well, right? Because such kind of models have shown a tremendous success, and the companies went on to IPO and $1 billion in US. But does this work in India, and at what scale? So I think we pretty much realized that. Now the interesting thing in India is just like region wise, right? There are influences region wise, right?
Hmm.
In South, there are different kind of influencers. In Tamil Nadu, in Karnataka, in Kerala, in Calcutta, right? In Gujarat, even in Assam, right? So there are so many different kind of influencers who are quite relevant to those people. So I think that is also another way to look at it from the scale perspective, that how we should be going about, and giving more opportunity to the micro influencers to co-create a collection region wise. So for example, most of the regional affinity what we have is a north and a mix of west, right? Or south, you need a very different treatment. For that, we have a disrupt core, of course, wherein we make more of something which you consume 365 days. But if we want to go more deep in terms of our distribution, we'll have to co-create a capsule with a male or a female
Yes.
celebrity who faces pretty much south driven. Raftar may won't work, Raftar's collection
Yes.
won't work that well in south. So we realize all these factors, and we'll have a very different treatment when it comes to going offline, even
Yes.
to the LFS. So yeah, that is something which is on it. And then after that, I think store is after 3 or 4 years we should be looking at store.
It looks like there's a interesting dilemma here, which is like local or national, or like they say local and global, but in your case, it's more about local and national. Because I think you're focusing on India, and there is this constant dilemma where what do you focus on?
Very
Do
true.
you
Very
look
true.
at the middle path, or do you look at focusing on the local areas going forward? Because now I think India has become flat. There's no concept of distance anymore.
So unlike any other country, in India the relevance, right? This word relevance is so different after every
Hmm.
500 kilometers, right? And the basis of our entire business model is more to derive that relevance from every particular region, right? So with that perspective, that is a challenge. I think most of the brands face. So what we have seen is
Hmm.
there is a brand XYZ brand. They are doing pretty decent in West region. They are doing pretty decent in Northeast region, but they are not able to even enter the South region, right? Despite the given product, despite a very famous brand name or anything of that sort, or even the very famous face, right? They are not able to enter into those markets because they are not able to have a higher sell through, and other retailers are not keeping them for that very reason. So in India, the word relevance, I think, is something which needs to be more personalized, which needs to be more well thought through. The very reason we are not going in with the hype of a TikTokers is because with the statistics they come in with, you can't define those relevance, right? You can't build up on those relevance.
What do you mean?
Their their content consumption is not something which is pretty much affinity led. मतलब आपका वेस्ट में सबसे ज्यादा टिकटॉक वीडियो देखा जाता है या फिर साउथ में देखा जाता है, तो हर जगह पर अगर आप लाइक यू नो इफ यू सी द काइंड ऑफ सेलिब्रिटीज व्हाट वी हैव वर्कड विद, दे आर मोर एफिनिटी लेड. एक तो इंटरेस्ट हो गया, फिर इंटरेस्ट के बाद वो कंजम्पशन एरिया भी हो गया, राइट? So that has been our pattern. With TikTok, you can't predict either of it, right? Interest तो आप छोड़ ही दो, आपका interest क्या है? Why these people are following?
Yes.
Why these people are following this particular guy, right? And वो loyalty factor जो है with that follower,
Hmm.
वो सबसे पहले अभी तक justified नहीं हो पाया. Having said that, there are people who consume like the very same video from Northeast, right? There are very different set of people who consume the very similar video in South, but they are only the viewers. They are not like the very hardcore followers or like can do anything or
Yes.
could do anything of that sort. So I think this entire influencer economy is yet to be understood. Pretty much like having its own set of adaptability, and it's going at its own pace.
It's still day one, is what I realize. And you make sense because TikTok may be too early for something like disrupt.
Right,
But I think once the time comes, you'd fit in right like a duck in the water.
right. Very true. So I think for the different brands who operate in a lifestyle, maybe for a cosmetic, right, or maybe something
Hmm.
which is into a wellness space or a hygiene space, where the treatment is very same, right? यार आप ये product ले लो, आपके साथ ये हो जाएगा, right? Those kind of products could do pretty well on the platforms like that. But when it comes to fashion or something in a very similar category, I think it has to be. It's good if it's personalized, but if it's not, then we already have the 75% of the inventory option, which caters to those people. I'll tell you a couple of interesting facts.
Hmm.
Most of the checkered shirts are consumed in South region. There is most of the light colors are consumed in North region, right? So those are the trends which India has seen. When it comes to trend, there is one country and all the people are pretty much into that consumption area, right? But in India, the consumer
Yes.
space, when it comes to consumer space, I think it's so wide, right? It's so wide.
Hmm.
So
I think
I think that
finding a niche is hard in India,
very true,
especially
very
a
true.
niche which is significant enough to make things sustainable.
Very true. I think when I was selling sneakers, what we realized is
Hmm.
okay, if this is an order for 11 or 10, it has to be from South. If it is 6 or 7, I'm talking about the men's range, right? And it has to be Northeast
Hmm.
and Northeast of Gujarat. And if it's a mix of 8, 9, or 10, right? The UK size, and it has to be somewhere from west or north. So
Hmm.
these were some of the trend which is from the body type as well. The
Yes. Yes.
consumer body type also changed, that their skin tone changes, and then basis of that their consumption also changes. So India is kind of
Yes.
something, the kind of a market which is quite unpredictable for like an influencer-led economy to coexist. But I think personalization and relevance is the answer to it. You should know that like how much you are investing and how much you are going to make. What is the brand value? What you are going to be creating with this, and what you are getting in exchange. That's it. And keep your expectations pretty decent. It always helps.
Hmm. Shakif, we can go on and on because we have such similarities in the mutual passion towards entrepreneurship.
True. Very true.
Time just flies by.
Oh yes.
Before I get to the final question, how can the listeners reach out to you?
I could be reached at sk@disruptbrand.com.
Mhm. The email is listed in the show description. Coming to the final question, what is the impact that you seek to make?
I think Puneet, I'll tell you what. यार जिस तरीके से overall my life has been shaped. I see that ये जो stories है, right? जो stories है जिनके साथ जिनको हम consume करते हैं, जिनके साथ हम relate कर सकते हैं, उनकी जो stories होती है वो काफी inspire करती है, काफी motivate करती है, right? We as a teenagers growing up, हम कभी शायद बराक ओबामा से रिलेट ना कर पाए, राइट? हम कभी शायद विल स्मिथ के साथ रिलेट ना कर पाए, बट हम हमेशा एक आर्टिस्ट और एक सेलिब्रिटी के साथ रिलेट कर पाते हैं बिकॉज हम उसका आर्ट कंज्यूम करते हैं, राइट? सो इन दैट केस आई थिंक माय ओनली my only thought process would be to connect such people who has been like who has done a real impact, who has made a real impact. सारे प्रॉब्लम्स के को ओवरकम करके आई थिंक दे हैव क्रिएटेड समथिंग. उनकी ट्रू स्टोरी इन कंटेंट फॉर्म एज वेल एज मर्चेंडाइज फॉर्म लेकर आना इज समथिंग लाइक which keeps me quite excited. And I think this is one of a job I think I'm very lucky enough to very lucky enough to
Yes.
do, very fortunate enough to do, because I realize the value of it. I growing up as a kid,
Hmm.
I always looked up to such motivation, such kicks of people, and I think the one person who always inspired me was Shah Rukh Khan, because he was someone we all grew up watching, right? I think
Yes.
such people inspired us. Their story inspired us. The stories, many such other Indian celebrities. My thought process is going to remain pretty same of bringing in a value
Yes.
in a story format, in a content, and of course in a product as well. Yeah,
This is like you're selling the Indian dream.
selling the Indian dream. Wow, I
Yeah.
wish I could. I could use this. Do you have any copyright, or I can use this?
You can. In fact, there's a book in which the author says it so beautifully. The Indian dream is more American than the American dream.
Wow, what an irony.
Yes. It's been such a magnanimously interesting and unending yet inspiring conversation, Shakir. Thank you for being on the show.
Thank you for having me, Puneet. I think this was quite lovely. This is my first podcast, and I think you made me a lot comfortable. Even, of course,
Thank you.
Rapo. And I think you are an amazing host here. You are doing wonderful job. Thank you so much.